Chosen a topic that's very broad and covers like over 100 years of history. Is there anything you weren't able to include in the film, maybe from your extras in your DVD, that you'd like to tell us about?
His question is, are there things that aren't included in the film? I think obviously I think there's some good extras. It's like John Waters talking about his favorite gay critic. I wish I'd managed to get that in. There are things that as you finally find the forum, just go by the wayside because they have to, and you say, alas. There's, probably one of the questions I get is, were there critics who you would like to talk to that would not do it? And in general, the way the film was done is, I said, it was a no-money film, so I would go to certain strategic places like the Toronto Film Festival or Cannes one year or the Montreal Film Festival, and to whatever critics were there, I would kind of tackle them. Because some of my good friends aren't in the film, and they're, I think, pissed off forever. And the reason is they just weren't where I was filming. We didn't have a budget to go there. But certainly one person I would like to have had is Manola Dargis, the New York Times critic, who I think is extremely interesting, wildly opinionated. Hollywood hates her. One reason I think I like her. And she has this policy about not appearing in any movie, or you can't find a picture of her on the web. It's quite odd since she's a public figure, but I could not persuade her to be in the movie. And probably my other honest regret is that, I think you probably get the idea, the film was made over 8 or 9 years. So when I started, web critics didn't exist. There really was a story of print critics. And as the years went by, clearly things changed around. And if you make a film, every decision you make is so expensive, costs you so much money. So I would like to have had one more really articulate web critic in the film talking through the movie. That I'm sorry, because the movie is not, I hope nobody thinks that it's an anti-web film. It's not that at all. I think people should read criticism wherever there is good criticism, and there are some terrific web people and terrific print people, and obviously some totally unqualified people on the web, and there are people who review in print who are Hollywood whores. So that's not where my bias is. I believe this is like a pro film critic film, and I think it's good for people to read criticism, and as a bridge between especially difficult films or documentaries, you really need that voice to encourage audiences to see things and to have a dialogue, and that's, I guess, the worry about our job being eliminated everywhere. Yes?
I was a little bemused to see you allow Rex Reed to talk about the horribleness of Bloordom, when he has been single-handedly responsible for a lot of that, and I found that kind of an uncritical way to use him as an interview subject. I guess there is a bit of hypocrisy, because Rex Reed clearly is someone who I have to say Rex Reed is a very schizophrenic figure to me. I can't quite figure him out, because he actually is, I don't know him. I mean, actually, he doesn't even, I think I saw him once, and he doesn't even know he's in the films. I just grabbed him, I think, at the Toronto Film Festival, and he has no memory of it, so it's not, he's a friend of mine. But I always, when I read his reviews, I'm perplexed, because certainly is someone who, as you said, is a blurb master, but he also can be very smart and be quite, in his very cynical, kind of wry kind of way, see through stuff. So I versus someone like Peter Travers for Rolling Stone, who is, I think, a complete blurb master, who I would never put in the film, who just, writes completely in bed with the studios forever and ever. So it's a judgment call. He's not my favorite critic, but I'm mixed about it. Okay. And then up there, I always have to look in it's very hard in the light. Any other questions or comments? I'm sorry, I can't see. Is there a hand? Yes? Who is your favorite critic?
My favorite critic. That's a really, that is probably impossible, because I think there are parts of critics. Saris is the guy that I grew up on, so that was at one point I thought the person who influenced me the most in his taste in films. There are critics like Jay Hogan, who just got fired from the Village Voice couple of months. So it's probably something I'm most attuned to because he's political, he's a left-winger, he likes sort of European difficult films, and his taste is sort of like mine, but I think there are lots of good critics. I don't find that I don't bemoan what criticism is. I think, I like, all the critics, including kind of half-Rex Reed, who I show. I think these are all good people, but I honestly could have 15 other American critics, and clearly there are, fine Canadian critics. I should mention quickly that I actually have a history of writing in Canada. That in the 80s I was just telling Liam Lacey, I wrote literally 100 articles for the Globe and Mail at one point, and I was proudly an American who really liked Canadian cinema and wrote lots of articles about Canadian filmmakers. And obviously, Jay Scott was writing then, and Jay Scott was terrifically, it's a legend in Canada, as he should be. He's a great critic. So, yes, back there.
I was wondering, in those extra 40 minutes, if you talk about Armand White at all, because I know nowadays that's pretty big, especially because he's been accusing a lot of the New York film critics for being racist towards him and stuff. So I was wondering if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, but this is again one of my cases. No, I don't have him, but I planned to interview Armand, and then I ran out of money and I couldn't go film him. And if you don't know, Armand White is an African-American critic in New York who is, again, wildly controversial, and the guy I like very much, and his reviews drive me crazy also, and he's certainly one, I think, critic of an older generation, one of the only print critics that young people seem to find interesting, and personally I find him, wildly erratic. I don't have any idea why he likes one movie and hates another movie. I have no idea. There's somewhere where I feel that to trust a critic, you need to be able to understand their sensibility. It's not that you should ever say, I don't like that critic anymore, I love that movie, and he hated it, I don't like him anymore. That's stupid. You can't do that on one film. But even that's one of my questions about Pauline Kael, is that I never quite understood why she liked anything, why she was so passionate. And Armand is that in 10 times over, although I personally have always gotten along very well with him, kind of a very interesting guy. But yes.
Would you consider the next project focus on European movies?
I would actually love to make a follow-up on British critics, because there's a really interesting history with certain magazines and movie and Sight and Sound, and Lindsay Anderson, filmmaker, is an early critic, but I think I've sort of suggested that I don't have the right people, the BFI, to sponsor it or something, but that would be, my languages would stop me. Clearly, it's crazy that I don't think there's a film about the French critics, the history of French criticism, which would be incredibly important, and that hasn't been made yet. Yeah, so I guess that's one of the things. When I show this film in other countries, I suggest to the critics in that country to make a film about the history of their criticism, and of course Canada would be, or English Canada, John Gertz and on, would be a terrifically interesting movie.